Yes guys, welcome back to another video. Welcome to the George Benson football channel. Unfortunately, this week has taken a horrible turn for the worst because Chelsea were beaten 1-0 away at Middlesborough 2 days ago. And unfortunately, as much as we have got Chelsea news videos that are kind of allowing us to cling on to some optimism as we talk about potential players coming in or money coming into the club, I sit here today with this shirt on, which is the shirt that doesn't have a sponsor on it. I absolutely love it. Infinite Athlete, I quite like that as well, but I do love this non-sponsored shirt. I want to talk about the players specifically today, and as much as we don't want to keep revisiting the Middlesbrough game, the Middlesbrough result, I was talking in the post-match review about how the players just go straight down the tunnel. A lot of people have turned around and said, it doesn't matter what happens after the full-time whistle. All we care about is the 90 minutes on the pitch and what we see, which equates to then results. And I'm going to tell you why the actual biggest issue that we have maybe isn't even Pochettino. I said in my video yesterday that it's time to sack him. I stand by that as of right now. And I want to talk here about the players because the biggest issue that we have is that we've already spent $1 billion. I know it's boring to keep going over this time and time again. But the fact of the matter is, the managers will come and go. We know that. It's always been the way at Chelsea. And unfortunately, as much as we thought it might be different under this new ownership, they've conked this one up good and proper. So it's going to have to keep being new manager, new manager, new manager, because we can't spend all this money and just keep on being a mid-table team, losing to championship sides in semi-finals because the players don't know what they're doing. Part one, because the manager's given them poor instructions. Part two is the players don't even care about this. And that is what my problem is. Thiago Silva, Armando Broja, Levi Colwill and Alfie Gilchrist. What do all four of those players have in common? They all went over to the Chelsea fans at the end of the game at the Riverside Stadium after a performance that, I don't care who you are, if you watch that Chelsea performance and you think it's good, then you got to screw loose. That's what our manager said after the game. Every single fan in that stadium, be it a Middlesbrough fan, I've spoken to Middlesbrough fans as well. I've got a good mate of mine from my school who's a Borough fan who thought this was the biggest game in many years for them, and he couldn't believe the levels or the lack of levels of effort, urgency, desire, quality in this Chelsea team. All four of those players went over to the fans. Thiago Silva is basically in the stands with the fans come the end of the game. And I've spoken to my friends who are actually at the match, Chelsea fans, because I didn't want to just shove every other player under the bus or not give credit to those who actually did go over, because the TV has obviously got certain angles that you see at certain times. There are certain pictures which would suggest that this guy didn't go over to the fans, that guy didn't go over to the fans. But from all the people I've spoken to, those four came over. I think Madueke kind of half went for it, gauged the vibe and then bailed. And I think that is the problem that Chelsea have here. Going forward, we can sack Pochettino, we can bring in another manager, but you can't all of a sudden just make players care about the badge, make players care about Chelsea. And like I said, that performance was so diabolical, beyond a shambles, that you would expect all of the players come the end of it, away at a championship side, in a semi-final, to all go over, hold their hands up, and show that they're in this together and that they're willing to work to rectify the situation. And when it's only four players, and you've got to look at those four. Thiago Silva's 39. This is probably the last half of a season that we'll ever get of him. Wasn't great in the match either, but still an absolute legend at our football club. Levi Colwill, who was the worst player, but still, he's made it very clear he wants to be at Chelsea. Armando Broja, maybe not really wanted by the manager, doesn't really get too many sniffs. He's brought on with half an hour to go after scoring at the weekend. Clearly not desired by the manager to be in the team, but has made it so clear that he wants to be at Chelsea. And then Alfie Gilchrist, who we know absolutely adores the club. He's been at the club since he was 6 or 8 years old. So, what you got there are four players, and every single one of them, there are question marks as to either whether or not they're good enough, whether they're going to make it at Chelsea. And you've got all of these players that we have spent so much money on who don't understand anything about what this club means. They have been bought in on massive contracts for massive money, and they are just storming down the tunnel because they are embarrassed to address us. Now, I can only see this getting worse and worse and worse. Because how can you, and this is the thing that I've mentioned already here, how can you make a player who's just joined get that honeymoon phase feeling. You know what it's like when you get into a new relationship? You get a little honeymoon phase and then all of a sudden, like, life just takes over and it's not quite as rosy as it once was. These Chelsea players that we have signed in the past year, there's been no such thing as a honeymoon phase. And the problem is, they look so disinterested when they're actually playing, and then they're so disinterested in making it okay-ish afterwards. And I stand by what I've said to people that are like, yeah, it's only about what happens in the game. Yeah, I totally understand that. I get it. It is about the performances and the results on the pitch. But these things will only change if the players actually give a shit. And that is the point that is seriously concerning. If Pochettino is sacked, which I think at this point is the right thing to do, don't think the players are playing for him. I don't think any of his ideas are being translated. And quite frankly, I've seen enough after 7 months to suggest that we are maybe even regressing from the Graham Potter days. So with that being said, before the season really does just tail off before the end of January, just try something. I don't even know what the answer is, but I'm just so sick and tired of having managers at Chelsea just be those yes men who just they're seeing it in a different world to everybody else, and to have the audacity to even consider that was a good performance is mental. I know that it's different watching on TV and then when you're stood on the sidelines. I've stood on the side of Stamford Bridge. When you're watching the game, it's a very different angle and way of looking at things. But at the same time, it's just inexcusable to even consider that was good. And as we go forward, I think the biggest problem for Todd Boehly, Bedad Bali, the Chelsea board, the new manager, Pochettino, whoever it may be, is how do you get players that have only been here 5 minutes and should be still riding the wave of being a Chelsea player, living in West London, living in Surrey, and being excited to be here? How do you get these players that are already kind of, getting paid, don't worry about it, it's Carabao Cup, mate, no bonuses for me. How do you get these guys interested? And how do you fix this palpable discord between the way that the club is just sinking into an abyss because of the way that we've spent money, because of the players, because of, like, everything is negative. Absolutely everything. And it may seem as though, you know, we're reacting a bit too much to this result, but it's not just reacting to this result. This result is kind of the fuel to address the bigger issues. There have been so many times this season where Chelsea have lost and the players have just gone straight down the tunnel. So for me, it's very easy to turn around and be like, look, you guys are a bunch of flipping idiots. This is garbage football. You're not even trying. In that second half, the players don't run. Players are not busting. Then, you know, they're not doing everything to get in the box. They're not trying new things when they can clearly see that things haven't worked. And I don't care if you're 20, 19, 21, 22, 23. By this point, you've got to have an ounce of intellect and intelligence about you to know that if you keep on repeating the same things over and over again and not getting results, it's the definition of insanity. Keep doing the same thing and expecting different results when things are negative. That's what makes people go insane. Doing that same thing over and over again. And then it's like the players themselves are arguing amongst themselves on the pitch. Like, for me, I don't see how we come back from this. But how do you make these players care? That is the one thing I need to know right now. And maybe it's like someone in the dressing room stumbles across a video like this where I'm genuinely sitting here and I'm being so honest. I genuinely think the players don't care about the situation that Chelsea Football Club are in. I think they're upset maybe that they don't win. But like it's the levels. It's the levels that this club have sunk to. And it is as a result of the players that we've got just not being good enough. Prove us wrong. And even if you're not that good, even if you are the 10th or 11th or 12th best team in the Premier League, have some humility. Go over to the fans who have literally travelled all the way up the country, 3, 4, 5 hours, some people, because it's January. People are broke because it was Christmas a month ago. January's already a hard time of the year. It's cold, everything. Like, put all of these things together and just have a bit of respect. Do you know what I mean? It shouldn't be up to a 39-year-old who's not even the captain, but basically is the captain, if you know what I mean. And it shouldn't be up to Alfie Gilchrist, who's only played 3 games, to come over and back him up. Armando Broja, Levi Colwill. To have 4 players in that squad who care enough is an absolute farce. And I don't know what the answer is, guys. I really don't. I just wanted to make this video today because I think it's important. As much as we can kind of bracket things and say Pochettino is to blame, nah, it's not all on Poch. It's a lot on these players as well. And of course, as a result of that, the board. It's all a mess. But hopefully, we beat Fulham at the weekend. That's the nature of football. If we win at the weekend, we're all happy again. We're smiling. Oh dear.